And welcome back to Visions. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Margarita Windisch, who is the state convener of the Socialist Alliance in Victoria. Welcome back to the program.
Pleasure.
Can you tell us, what do you actually do? What do you stand for? What does your organisation stand for?
The Socialist Alliance really stands for redistribution of wealth in our society. I mean, that's really the basis of it. I think, what we are trying to put forward is that it is possible that we can change the world to a better place. Neoliberalism is absolutely disaster. I think capitalism in a way has shown too it's actually not been able to look after the generation, and it's certainly not putting anything forward that actually is something positive for the next generation. And we really believe that we can do better than that. We're human beings, we've got a lot of potential, we've got a lot of creative ideas, and we think very clearly that the only way we will be able to harness that potential of every individual in a way that can only be done through a collective decision-making process. There's no way that we will be able to achieve real equality for everybody, which means that every human being has got the right to develop to the best of their ability, if everything is based on who can make the most money.
Yeah.
Because we know people are going to lose out. And you look around the world, it's a dreadful mess.
Yeah.
It's a disaster when you see so many, babies dying of diseases that we've got cures for. You see women dying in childbirth. You see malnutrition. It's just doesn't make any sense. And we strongly believe we can change the world, but it's got to depend on all of us to be part of this process.
And how can we all be part of this process?
Well, everybody can in their own way, but I think the most important thing is that people start getting the confidence that it is possible to change things. And partly it will also depend on the different people in the movements who are open to welcome people in. We shouldn't provide any artificial barriers to people who want to join us. If somebody comes along and said, look, I'm unhappy with what's going on, we should say, well, why don't you come along? If you're unhappy about the war, come to the next Stop the War meeting.
And do you find when you do some things that people actually hear you and make changes? The politicians above you make changes?
Well, politicians have always made changes when there's been enough pressure from below. Good politicians, or let's say people who represent the majority, are part of, there's no above and below, so to speak. But in the current context where we have, for instance, in Australia, I've had, a couple of centuries of governments who only represent a small minority, really. They've only ever listened to us when we really, put it on. And when, workers went on massive strikes, when there were big sustained movements that forced them into changing particular laws.
And what are your views on the current new government?
Well, I personally think that, there's another word for the Australian Labor Party, which is called another Liberal Party. I personally don't think there's much difference between the two. Both the previous coalition government and the Labor Party, they both operate and work within the principles of neoliberalism. They think the free market is what needs to go, is what's the only thing that's possible. They strongly believe in privatisation. So I think we're not going to see much of a change in the Rudd government compared to the previous coalition government. I'm very, very happy we got rid of John Howard, and I think the fact that the swing was so massive against the coalition government is a sign of the people when they said, no way, we do not want another term of this slash and burn politics. We don't agree with your politics, and people kicked Howard out. So I think that's another sign in a way where people are saying we actually don't agree with the work choices law, and we certainly are very worried about climate change, because that is really something that we really need to take very, very seriously,
And you recently participated in the election. Can you tell us what your role was?
Yeah, the Socialist Alliance also stood in the federal election. We always run in elections. We think it's an important area of struggle, so to speak. We are able to put forward a vision that nobody else puts forward, which is really looking towards public ownership, participatory democracy, getting people involved and really being real agents of social change. we've always sort of put out this message saying, don't just vote for us, but join us, and together we do it. I ran as the Victorian Senate candidate for the Socialist Alliance, and it was a really wonderful experience, you know. We got a lot of support from people, you know, we got a lot of donations, we got some donations from unions, from individuals, and we were able to, you know, get people even handing out for us in Lakes Entrance, you know. I didn't even know who that was, but...
Did you find how many people elected you?
Well, we got a couple of thousand votes in the Senate. I actually think it's interesting because that was a very polarised vote. I know people who just voted straight out Labor, even though they don't agree with Labor, but they're very, very worried. They were so keen to kick Howard out. And people are not really confident about our preferential voting system. So they think, even if I don't like the Labor Party but I want Howard out, I better put a 1 there, even if they, for instance, support Socialist Alliance or the Greens more. So some people went straight for Labor, or some went straight to Greens, even though they actually agree more with our politics, but because they know the Greens have a higher chance to getting into the Senate than we do. But that's not a problem for us. I mean, we know it's a long struggle. Like, it's taken the Greens 20 years to be in the position that they are in now, and Socialist Alliance has only been around for 6 years. So I think in 6 years we've actually got a good name, we've got a good profile. A lot of people who are interested in politics know about us because they see us on a day-to-day basis. We don't just pop our heads up at election time. We're actually out there every day. We're with the locals in the pub, we talk politics here, we're in the street, we're in the workplaces, so we're real activists. And I think that's also what we projected very clearly in the election campaign.
And the reason you do that is to see what people want and work with the people.
Yeah, exactly, and also give people an alternative point of view, you know. We are really limited to get our message out, and that's mainly limited because we get censored. We get censored by the mainstream media. That's why, you know, like programs like yours are so important, you know. Community media is absolutely critical. So the mainstream media just pretends we don't exist, because if they start letting people know our message, there's a lot of people who would like what we stand for. They agree that privatisation hasn't been good. They agree that the troops should come out of Iraq. They agree that workers should have more control. You know, so they agree that climate change is a serious issue and we need to do something about it. So that works against the interests of the mainstream media. So they're not going to give us a Guernsey, basically. So we have to do it all on the ground with our, you know, with our community media.
Beautiful. About to go to a break now. You're watching Visions. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly.